Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. As you start popping in, you can say hello in the chat box. Tell us where you're from. Tell us how many kids you have, how long you've been homeschooling, your ages, the ages of your kids. You don't have to tell us your age, but knowing the ages of kids that you're homeschooling is helpful. So hello. I started it a little bit early so people have time to come on in and start talking in the chat box. So if you've never been to a webinar using this platform before, you can type in the chat box. It's there on the side. You can write your where it says write your message here and a little dialog box. You can type in and say hello. Tell us where you're from. Tell us how many and the ages of your kids, maybe how long you've been homeschooling. We can start to get to know one another because I think during this workshop, it's the back and forth that we'll be doing, the give and take, the troubleshooting, and giving each other specifics about what has worked for us. And yay, Brandy's here. And I think that this kind of communal sharing and pooling our knowledge together is going to be the biggest perk of this workshop. Not necessarily what I have for you, but what we can come up with together. Hey, Amber, Kyle, is it Kyle or Keel? I say it both ways in my head and I'm never sure. Okay, awesome. 17 years homeschooling. All right, so I know you will have some wisdom to share with us. All right, so one of the things you can do if you want to ask a specific question right there where you're typing in your chat, you can click that dialog box and choose and select a question mark. And that just turns that dialog box red. So it makes the questions stand out and it makes it easier to find when I'm doing Q&A. So, all right. Okay, key, then an accent. Keel? Keel. I'm sorry. I'm totally botching that, I'm sure. Hi, Julia, Shannon. Awesome. Valerie. All right. Catherine, Celeste. Yes, I know it is dinner making time here in the Pacific. Celeste and I are going to be doing a planning chat webinar next month, so that'll be super exciting. If you signed up to get automatically registered for all future webinars, then you'll get the notifications for that one. Otherwise, you'll just have to pay attention and see when the announcements come. All right, Wendy and Amber and Pam in North Georgia. All right, awesome, guys. This is great. Good to see all of you here. Let's see. Okay, so I don't know how well I'll be able to keep up with the chat box as we go through all this, but I'll do my best. I don't do too well at paying attention to one thing while talking, but I know I'm going to be going through and rereading the chat log afterwards, and the chat log will also be available probably sometime tomorrow. Definitely by Monday, you'll get another email from me with the resource links that were talked about here and chat log link and the replay. You'll get the replay link right away. But then I'll also record the audio so you can listen to it in audio only form or have the chat log separate. And I'm sure that great resources are going to be mentioned during this little webinar. So I'll try to collect as many of those links as I can. First year homeschooling, there was a little survey and when you registered, and thank you to everyone who filled that out. I know there are a number of people that are just starting out homeschooling, or they just have a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And this is still going to be a great and helpful workshop for you because even though you don't have a full school year to look back on and make changes next year, specifically, to go through that process exactly for yourself, you're going to get a lot of ideas and insights and hear the experience of a lot of other moms. And that's just invaluable to have older women farther along in the journey to share what really works, what life is really like, because it's so easy if you're only reading the books or only looking at blogs or to get a pretty narrow view and to get a pretty idealized view. So today we are talking about real homeschooling life and not trying to idealize it. All right, first official year. Let's see. Good. Awesome. So, okay, here's first step number 1 in the homeschool audit as we try to look at last year and make changes for next year based on what happened this year and trying to get some insights on what happened this year so that we can make the changes that we need to for next year. The very first thing I want you to think about is, what was your biggest win this year? And even if you haven't homeschooled yet, then think about what was the thing that went the best this last year. Even it doesn't have to be a homeschooling thing. It might be, read aloud time. That's a school thing. That's a life thing. That's a valid thing to count. It might be getting out and going to the park or giving your kids lots of outdoor time or any kind of thing that you feel was good for your kids. What was your biggest win this year? Oh no. All right, in Japan. That's awesome. All right, so share your biggest win in the comments. And it was funny, as I was browsing through some of the people that filled out the survey, there were a number of people that said surviving was their biggest win for the year. And that is a valid win. That is totally legitimate because some years are just survival years. They just are. Some years are. And if you did, then praise God. That counts. Morning time Starbucks. Graduating. Yay. Oh, improvements between siblings. That's awesome. The 2-year-old turning 3, that's a good win. And when she turns 4, it's an even bigger win. All right. Yes, some knowledge gained. All right. Read aloud, morning time. That's awesome. Okay. So as you're sharing your biggest win, also, I want to know, what was your biggest struggle? So what was the thing that really tripped you up the most? What was your biggest disappointment? What didn't go as well as you had hoped that it would? Yay, 6-week semesters. Avoided burnout. That's awesome, Katie. Okay, getting started. Getting started is the hardest part. All right. Good. Backing off on morning time and just letting them play. That is good. Yes, sometimes the biggest win comes after the biggest struggle. And so as you think about what your biggest struggle was for the last year, then that might be something either that you need to look at and let go of for next year, or that could be where you zero in on and that's what you work on, focus on next year. You just kind of have to figure that out as you put things together. All right. Having a baby, that throws things off. Yep. That throws off your energy, just the mental ability that you have to cope, as well as just making life totally unpredictable. All right. Can't get people to stay seated. All right. So if you spot a struggle that someone's sharing in the comments and you have had that problem and you've found a little tip or trick, then share it in the comments. This isn't just me talking. This is us troubleshooting together. So pay attention to the stream of struggles that are going through. And if there's any that you have some experience to share, then please do share it. All right. No fluent readers. It's a lot easier when they can read. It takes a lot more teacher time and teacher energy when they can't read. And reading lessons are also draining and important, but yeah, very one-on-one intensive. All right. Yes, babies, brand new babies are easier than toddlers. That's for sure. Okay. Standing desks. Wow, cool. Okay. So I don't know if you can see it, but I think there's a download button at the bottom of the chat that says Homeschool Audit Workbook. You click on that download link and it'll pull up the worksheet. I'm also off and on going to share my screen and share the worksheets as we work through the questions. I did a homeschool social night with a bunch of local ladies last night, and we went through about half of it in 2 hours. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to be a little more realistic in this workshop today and not think that we're going to get to all these questions. So as you download that and look at that, that guide, that list of questions by category, and let me move back to my chat. Okay, so let me know if you can or cannot download that offer there, that download link for the Homeschool Audit Guide. That guide has a whole bunch of questions that are like prompts. They aren't like short answer questions where it's a test and you have to answer every single one completely, because then we'd be here till next month. But it's to get your juices flowing, get you to thinking about what went well and what didn't go well, and what might be some reasons that you were able to succeed in some areas, and what might be some reasons that, resistance or frustrations cropped up, and apply what you've learned so far about yourself and your kids and your situation to those struggles so that we can make changes for next year that will help us move forward better. Okay. Yay. Okay, good. You all are getting it. That's great. Okay. So the first section there, it has a bunch of points. So you get to give yourself a score. And the high scores don't win on this one. Low scores don't win either. But it's more a way to think through all the drains on your energy, because a homeschool day is draining. A homeschool day is exhausting. We just give out of ourselves, and that's what we do, and that's what we're supposed to do. And so there's a reason why at the end of the day we feel like a wet noodle. And I think sometimes we think, oh, we should just be able to do all of this and feel great and perky and happy that we got everything done at the end of the day, where instead you feel like, okay, give me chocolate and send me to bed, please, I'm just done. Do we have to eat dinner, really? And so those points are a way to just look at, like, these are how many drains you have. And it's not like we all have, like, it's not like, okay, so you all start with 10 points and you start subtracting these points. We all also have different amounts of energy, different amounts of time, different amounts of other commitments that are also drawing on us. So it's just kind of a way to say, oh, these are things that are making it hard, and just to acknowledge it and to know, because then you can be more realistic about your expectations. And then that last one there says, add the points that seem right to you for any chronic health issues or learning disabilities or other energy or illness that might be in your family. And I had a couple ladies last night at my house and were like, plus 100, plus 200, I win. I was like, what? I bet. I don't doubt it. So, all right. Good. Okay, so we aren't going to go through, and I'm not going to ask you to score those right now, but those are things to think about as you figure out, what's making you feel so drained. There, even things like not having a friend to talk to is a drain. So you can look at those, and you might not be able to subtract students from your day or subtract toddlers from your responsibilities, but maybe you can find a good friend and talk a few times a week. Or, maybe you can, I think those prompts will help you start thinking in different directions, I hope. Okay. Teaching separately. So if you say math is a good example. So I have one block in my day, school day for math, because we use Math-U-See and they're doing one concept for a whole week instead of a brand new lesson every day. And because there are DVD instructions, I don't need to be one-on-one with math for everybody every day. So I can say we have a math time and whoever needs help, I help. So to me, that's one thing. But if we were using a math curriculum where I was having to present a lesson to each child, then math would be plus as many children as I had. They would be separate. So you kind of have to look at how what you are doing is arranged. And for example, another example would be what we have elementary lessons twice a week. I count it as one thing because even though we're doing history and science and all that, it's stuff that's all contained together. And I pull out and we sit down and we go through it. It's one kind of how many things do you have to start in a day? Because starting is the hardest part. How many times do you have to get that momentum going? Yes, low energy. Follow Brandy's series. Okay. It does make things harder. Another thing that makes things harder is if your extended family, especially your own parents, are unsupportive or critical. It just takes away some inner resources that you otherwise might have. It's draining. Okay, we use Math-U-See, and so all the lessons are taught by the author on DVD. And I love it because he can repeat himself over and over and over again and still tell jokes while he's doing it for the third or fourth time, whereas I can't. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. If you teaching textbooks is another one that's kind of outsourced a little bit. So that helps. Subjects that you can outsource even just partly really helps that drain feeling. Yes, love Math-U-See. Okay, I think we do have some MEP users. That's the one that's really teacher intensive, right? All right. Yeah. Getting those diagnoses and acknowledging that in your day, that's huge. Okay, so you can start looking at that and asking your questions or sharing. Okay, and I am then going to talk about the first section of questions there. And instead of going through question by question, during the workshop, I'm going to talk about kind of what I'm getting at with the section. And you can start brain dumping and writing out those notes and concerns and struggles and the feelings of obligation that you might feel. Just start brain dumping as you're thinking through these questions and put things in the chat box and get some help from all the women that are here. Okay, I'm going to see if screen sharing will work so we can all be on the same page. And I'm not sure I'll be able to see the chat and do this, but maybe. Okay, so audit your year is the first section. So this is thinking specifically about, okay, are the questions cut off for you? Oh, they are because the windows. Nope. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay. So this section, Audit Your Year, is about specifically looking at this last previous year. So if you're new to homeschooling, watch the comment box and learn from everyone else. But think about, if you homeschooled last year, think about your year. Think about what did you study? What did you do? What were the wins? What was great about this year? What did you learn about? And that is not just what was on your curriculum list, but what did you study? What did you learn about, including field trips or even vacations that you took, but they were to a cool place and kids got excited about something? It includes things like a kid getting interested in a topic and checking out a bunch of library books on his own. And so what did your kids learn about this last year? And make that list. Write that one out so you can see it and say, oh, okay, maybe we're doing all right after all. Try it. Now, I bet they did not learn nothing. That's how we feel at the end of the year. But think about, even if you read aloud stories, the stories are explaining how, people work. You're learning about how life rolls and how people might respond to it. Um, what kind of things did your kids learn about this year? Even it might have been they had a co-op or sports or something and learned about peer pressure, or learned about how to communicate better with their peers. All right, so think outside the box with these. And what topics did they seem most interested in pursuing on their own? And that's not so that we can then tailor everything to the kids, but so that as you're brain dumping and thinking about your kids and their interests, you can say, oh, look, my kids actually are interested in things. Because that's part of our goal, is if they are going to become lifelong learners, then that comes from an interest in the world. And so if they have interests, then that's good. That's a good sign. And it doesn't even necessarily matter what those interests are, but that they're starting to collect interests. And so those interests are something to build on, not to narrow down into and zoom into, but things to start with. They're the starting place that then they can move from and add more interests as they start seeing things are connected. And that includes activities. So it's not just reading. It's, they got a pocket knife and taught themselves how to whittle, or they dug a big, deep hole in the backyard. What kind of things did they like to do this year too? And then kind of the flip side of it is, what did you have on your agenda that they were resistant to learning or doing? What did you want to cover, but they, for whatever reason, didn't? What didn't happen? And so then you can start thinking about those situations and maybe coming up with some ideas for why they were resistant. I think sometimes we feel perhaps like we have the only resistant homeschooled children. Everyone else, their kids do their independent work checklist perfectly and do everything they're supposed to do, but mine is the only one in the world that fights me over what's on his list. And that's not true. All kids go through that phase of trying to figure out, just like the toddler goes through the phase of figuring out if no touch really means no touch. That the kids go through a phase when they're older of wondering if they have any say in their day or their work, and they have to learn the right way and the wrong way to have a say in their work. So what kind of resistance have you had this year? And can you think of any reasons? Might it have been developmental? They just weren't ready for it? Or are they trying to grab some control? And, maybe you can direct that in a different way or address that without it leading to conflict. Or, they want to stay narrow and you're trying to make them broad, and so they're resistant. All right. Yeah, good. So share some things that have helped, some different kinds of resistant learners you might have had. There you go. Get the math on the computer, and sometimes that's a magic. All right. And the last one there is, are you happy with their progress? And that is not a one-part question. There's kind of two parts in that question. It's not just asking about their progress, but also, why were you happy or not happy with their progress? So what was their progress? Because they did make progress, even if it might not look like even very much forward momentum in the book, like a math book. But if you had to go back in the math or whatever and shore up math facts or something, that's still progress, because now they're faster in their math facts. So what has been their progress, and are you happy with it? And if you aren't happy, should you be happy with it? It's kind of that's looking more at the attitude and the expectations that we put on ourselves and how kind of the story we're telling ourselves about our homeschool day. All right. Good. I'm seeing a lot of great chat going on in there. Okay, so these questions next about the schedule. Let's see if I can get them all on a screen. Let's see, I might edit on the fly here since you all have the PDF already. Okay. The section on the schedule is looking at the flow of your day or how you planned things out, how your time was allocated. So how did you break up your day and plan things out, your activities, the work that you had to do? How did you keep the day moving? It's looking at those kind of things. What were the roadblocks to your plan and your schedule actually working out in real life? Because there are roadblocks no matter what. And as you identify those kind of things, then you can move forward and try to address them better next year. So what were some roadblocks to the schedule you had created? Was it too full? Was it not realistic? Maybe it didn't exist at all. I thought it was funny when I read the surveys. A lot of people said their biggest struggle was consistency. And probably 95% of the people that said that their biggest struggle was consistency had a baby or a toddler or both. And just here to tell you that I don't know if consistency is possible when you have a toddler and especially a baby, just because life changes so fast. It's just a time to roll with it. And sometimes that's rolling with it all over, for a really long time because you have toddler after toddler after toddler, but it's just reality. Toddlers don't lend themselves to schedules. So if you made a plan or a schedule, how did you keep it? Not like how did you do it, but how did you keep track of it? How was it written down? Was it on your calendar? Was it on a checklist? And how did that work for you? Yeah, it's nice when there are small children to blame the inconsistency with, but yeah, it is also just hard work, and we're all resistant to hard work, aren't we? It's just part of human nature. Did your kids know what was expected of them each day? That was spreadsheets. And Brandy, you have videos about your spreadsheets, don't you? All right, I'm going to start. I'm going to go back to video. Maybe. There we go. All right. Husband long hours, that's a struggle, and a schedule struggle. Okay, so did you have a written plan? What was the hardest part of your written plan? Maybe it wasn't having it written down, but just trying to keep it in your head. Your head is not a good place to keep things. Just saying, it's not. And did your kids know what was expected of them each day? I think one of the biggest points of resistance that we have had so far, especially with the 10, 11, 12-year-old age range, is that school seemed like this interminable giant thing that they were afraid was going to suck up their whole day and they would never have any time to ride their bike or play with Legos. And so they were resistant from the very first morning because they were trying to get their free time. They wanted free time. They needed free time. And so they tried grabbing it, And when I actually wrote the daily schedule up on a whiteboard where everyone could see it and said, okay, look, these are school hours, and then here's lunch, and you have all this free time here. It's the promise of free time. You do have free time as long as you actually do your work. And, it took half a year or 3/4 of a year for that to finally sink in, to just stick with it, be impervious, stick with it and hold that, just be willing to say it over and over with them and make them finish the work if they did dawdle or try to take free time before their schoolwork was done. And now my one that was the biggest struggle, he's very self-motivated and knows that the better and the faster he gets his work done, the more he just goes straight to it and gets it done, the more free time he has. And because free time is what he wanted, now he's very self-motivated. So, but it took a long time to learn that lesson. It took a lot of stick-to-itiveness to get there. Yeah. We can even be nervous that they won't have the free time and the outdoor time that they need. So one of the other things is on their schedule, on their checklist, I have exercise as one of the things that they can do. So they have their list of independent things they can do, and it's a little bit of the ownership they have, the control they have is, I don't care what order they do it in, they just can't play until their things are done. And one of them is exercise. So that's an outdoor break that they can take when they want to. And one of them likes to take that very first thing, and he goes and he takes a morning walk, and that's awesome. And one of them likes to do it actually halfway through his math lesson. So he gets about half done and says, well, I need a break. And he goes outside, and it's still getting something done on his checklist. He's not pausing. He's still working on his checklist things because I put exercise on there, but he has that option to go do that. And that helped a lot this year. All right. Yes. Starting is the hardest part, and you don't want to lose kids along the way in the day. How do you gather everyone to get going? So the schedule, how does it even start in the day? Do you actually know how much time the work should take? And have you budgeted enough time to actually do it? And I think it was one of Pam's recent posts is you can't get 3 hours of homeschool work done in 3 hours. If you have 3 hours of homeschool work to do, you need to schedule at least 5 hours, maybe 6. It's just life, because those transition times take so much. Things always take longer for one reason or another. So it's just kind of the reality. Yes, budget your time. All right. Spiral notebook. Yes. So one of the ways that we start morning time, and this was new for us this last year, although I got the idea from Pam's Your Morning Basket book. So I was having a problem because we do breakfast and then chores and then morning time. And so to try to get everyone to the table for morning time was me yelling and trying to collect everyone. And also some mornings I didn't really want to get started. And so I would procrastinate calling everyone. And then eventually it would just feel too late. And so we just wouldn't do it at all. So that was pretty typical for us. And so this last school year, I would turn on a song. And we had a specific song that meant come to the tape, get your binder, get a drink of water, first go use the bathroom or whatever it is you need to do. But by the time the song is over, and it's a 4.5-minute song, you have to be at the table. So people who had gotten started early and were already doing their math had a minute or two to finish the problem they were working on. People had time to go use the bathroom, get a drink of water, get their binder, and meet at the table. And it was just a fun atmosphere kind of thing. So now it's starting the day with music and coming together with a fun, peppy rock and roll kind of song. And that helped the mood and the atmosphere a lot. It's not mom calling and ordering everyone and getting all in a tizzy and starting the day off that way. Yes. Okay. So, and then the biggie, do you feel you and the kids spend a reasonable amount of time doing the work that it takes? Or does it feel like it just drags on and it shouldn't take as long as it does? And that is a really tricky one to figure out, but that's a good question to spend some real thinking time on, and maybe brainstorming with friends or something on that one, and some strategies for fixing dawdling because it's a problem. And the kids would be so much happier if they don't dawdle. It's just kind of convincing them that they will be happier if they don't dawdle, and also teaching them how to stop, because breaking a habit is hard. Timer for each side. Yeah, so if you have dawdler, procrastinator type questions, then share, or not questions, but solutions. Please share them. Okay. So so my kids have morning chores and all of that. There's a time that they have to be done with their morning things by. And if they aren't, they lose computer privilege for that day. That's I love handing that consequence out because I don't think they need computer every day. So I'm going to be looking for a reason to say, oh, lost your computer privileges, sorry. But they start off the day with that. But there are a lot of opportunities for them to lose it, and they know what they are, and they're posted on the board, and they know that no skin off my nose if I have to say, well, lost your computer privilege, sorry. And they want it. So, and the older boy, that's the biggest one for the older boys. And the time they would get is after the younger ones are in bed. So it's not like they're spending the afternoon on the computer or anything, but losing computer privileges has been the most helpful consequence that we have had so far for getting things done in a timely fashion. And also they can lose it for complaining. Sometimes they get a warning and sometimes they don't, but if they just want to argue, then no computer. Okay. How about auditing your stuff, the homeschool stuff, which is always the worst this time of year because it's like everything magnifies and multiplies and it's all a mess at the end of the year. So audit the stuff. What is in your cabinets that you didn't actually use or need? It's time to get it out. What stuff has not been working for you? What are the things where maybe just a different kind of pencil or a different kind of container would make all the difference for making it easy to happen? Like one of the things, at first I had a bunch of file boxes that had lids. And when I moved to file crates that don't have lids, I could not believe how much more likely I was to just put things away instead of putting it on top of the lidded container, and I'll put it actually in it. Just eliminating that step of having to open the lid solved a big part of my problem. So eliminating as many steps as you can to putting the stuff away. Okay, pencils. Pencils are the insanity problem. That's right, Virginia. Everyone has the pencil problem. So what are some pencil solutions that people have here? Construction paper. Whew, that I have a crafting daughter. It's crazy. Oh, that's cool, Courtney. All right. I used mechanical pencils last year, and I finally found some that lasted and that work pretty well, that didn't break, that the kids didn't just mangle every 2 weeks. And each child had one pencil in their color because they're color coded, and they had to use their pencil. And those were the only pencils that they, for the most part, so I slowly got rid of other pencils as I found them under couch cushions and all those places that pencils somehow migrate to all by themselves. Pencil cap. Yes. For a little while, we did the communal pencil container, and I just realized, all right, it's part of my job. My job is to pick up pencils. Whenever I see a pencil, I'm just going to pick it up. I'm not going to say anything, and I'm not going to gripe at the kids. I'm just going to pick up the pencils and put them away, put them in the container. And it's just part of my job, and I just have to accept that. We did that for a couple of years. All right. Yes. You know you've gotten a good group of homeschool moms together when everyone is talking about their favorite pencils and pencil sharpener. Yes. The stuff that the toddlers and the younger kids can get out while they're busy. All right. So what changes could you make to smooth out the kinks in your day by just ordering your stuff a little bit differently? Do you need another bookshelf? Do you need different containers? Do you need to color code some things? Is the kids' stuff, is it easy for them to put their own stuff away? Putting your stuff away is one of the things on my kids' checklist, so they aren't done with the day till all their stuff is put away. That's a big one. What is the most common supply-related hiccup in your day? I think for most of us, it's that the kids can never find their pencil when they're supposed to be doing their math, right? So they're supposed to be doing their math, and instead, I don't have a pencil, I can't find a pencil, or they spend 20 minutes sharpening their pencil. I sure hope that one's not only me. All right. Ooh, that's a good question. LaToya is in an 850 square foot apartment. And so what are some space saving ideas? Definitely that's got to include minimizing, decluttering, and only having the essentials. Yes, IKEA has great things, just things that don't take up a lot of space themselves. Yeah, you don't necessarily need duplicates of some things for every kid. Yeah, those are all great ideas. Cubicles. All right. Shoe racks over the door. Good. Okay. And besides the school clutter, is there a lot of other extra clutter in your house that then makes it difficult, if you don't have the counter space or the table space cleared to work? Is there other household clutter that is getting in the way of a productive homeschool day? The summer is the time to take care of those things. All right. How about audit your flow? I'm going to have to start moving faster, aren't I? These are some great ideas that you guys are having in the chat box, though. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Okay, audit your flow. So this is like how you move from one thing to another, or how you get started in the day. How you're using your time and moving from one time to another. So some of these kind of are duplicated from the schedule, but the nitty-gritty of the homeschool day, it really comes down to these kind of issues. So as you're looking, you can look at your last year and do this tally, but definitely do this tally as you plan for next year. What work does each child have to do, and how much teacher time will all those things take? And add that up for every child. So how much of your time total is being required every day? And is that realistic? And then as you look at that, you say, okay, I can't, if I have 3 hours of teacher, being teacher planned for this next school year, is that realistic? And can I do 3 hours back to back, like just go as teacher time? Or am I going to say, okay, I'm going to do 1 hour, in 30-minute blocks, and have 15 minutes of a break between each, or margin, or we're going to do half of this before lunch and half of this after lunch, just to manage your energy. How do your children currently let you know that they need your help? We had the problem last school year with math pages that needed to be corrected. They didn't always have a spot to go to. So they said they did their math, but I never saw it, so I never corrected it. So they never finished it if they got any wrong. And so one thing I'm setting up over the summer is one definite stay put place where if they are done with it, and it needs to be graded. It needs to go in this one place, and then I can see things that need to be done. And so I remember, oh yeah, I'm going to have to grade math today. Right. And of course, if you're trying to, do a reading lesson and you have the older child coming in with a math question, it's like, I can only teach one child at a time. How do you manage kids interrupting, and how do you kind of stack them where you're working with one and the other needs help? There needs to be some procedure for them letting you know that they need your help, and then you guys coming together. Maybe you have a blocked time where that happens. Maybe it can go on the whiteboard, just some kind of way where it's not everyone trying to get your attention all the time, every 10 minutes, basically. And so how do you help your kids not interrupt lessons? That's a big one. And it's not really possible for toddlers. Toddlers are just going to interrupt lessons. It's kind of just the reality of life. And how about transitions? A lot of time can be wasted in transitions, and that's when a lot of kids wander off to the Legos or just start doodling and drawing on their pages instead of actually doing their work. How much time do you think was lost in transition this last year? And what are some strategies maybe for smoothing over those transition times and making better use of the time between subjects, or making sure that there is some kind of break, but it's purposeful and not just someone sneaking off to get a break? Or, how can you make those transition times a part of the plan, and not just everyone suddenly losing steam and petering out and going and doing their own thing, and you're always having to start the day and always having to collect them? Yes. How do you remind kids what needs to be done? Are you trying to do housework during homeschooling hours? That means that, moving the laundry, loading the dishwasher, these kind of things, they do have to be done. And sometimes homeschooling makes the housework actually look a lot better than it used to. Like, you know what? I would rather move laundry right now than teach phonics, actually. So there's some doing housework that's totally totally just normal life. And some of it is productive procrastination, doing different work, not the work you're supposed to be doing. And so, we just have to be aware that we have these same kind of struggles as our kids. All right. Now the biggie. Audit your relationships. So that's, how, when you have to teach or just call everyone together, when you're talking to your kids, what's the tone and what's the atmosphere? Are there points at which just suddenly things have built up and suddenly you don't even know how it happened? There's conflict. It is very important to take a look at those times, take a look at why that's happening, and really try to figure it out and work it out and talk to them, and maybe ask other moms, or just to really dig into those issues, because when we can't communicate well with our kids, we're just not going to be able to homeschool them. That's just the bottom line. Guarding that relationship and those interactions is absolutely essential. So learning some strategies on our side, on the mom side, to diffuse the conflict, figuring out why the child feels afraid of something or angry about something, and how to help them address that. Maybe, how are there ways to avoid the conflict altogether? Is there some clarification that needs to happen, or some way that you can just avoid it altogether? It's some specific little thing that you don't even necessarily have to do. If it's over a checklist, do the spiral notebooks instead, or, You change things up so that you can avoid the conflict. Not just go into the conflict saying, okay, I'm going to have to win this one just by sheer brute force. What's the conflict saying, and how can we address the real underlying problem? A big help to me on this one was finding the book Nurturing by Nature, which is about children's personalities. And there was an example in there for the personality type that my son was, that was pretty much just exactly what was happening every single morning in our house. And I was like, oh, this is a personality thing. And just knowing that and knowing to come at it in a different way, it just changed our mornings. And it's not like we never have conflict anymore, but now I know how he's perceiving me, and that my perception of what I'm saying and his perception of what I'm saying is not always the same. So that book is Nurture by Nature, and it's very, very helpful. I highly recommend it. I think most libraries should have it. My library has it. And does another, so I like to make plans, right? I am a planner, and I like to have my lists, and I like to know what's next, and I like to make the decisions. And a big thing that has helped our days and plans go so much more smoothly is to let my kids have a say in the plan, or to ask them for feedback and ideas. And it was actually really hard for me to do, because I can make the best plan. I don't need their input to make the best plan. But when I have their buy-in on the plan, and when they feel like they have some say, when they do have some say, it's a better plan because everyone's on board. And that is huge when you have the kids on board with the plan. And it's not just, for a long time, our plan, our homeschool day was just me pulling everyone. Like they're the stubborn mule with their heels in, and I'm just saying, I'm strong enough, come on. And when instead we could just all be going together, because we are all in this together and everyone has a say. That was just a huge shift that was very much worth the letting it go on my end. So are there times where you can regularly talk with each child about how things are going and their thoughts, and if they had any ideas on how to change things up? And, they'll say things like, have ice cream for lunch or whatever, and you can just laugh. They're just being funny. But are you presenting your children with enough choice and freedom that they feel ownership? Because that's how you get them to be responsible. You don't get responsibility unless you have ownership. And so we have to find ways to give them ownership so they can experience responsibility and really exercise it. So on the flip side, it's possible that you might be giving your children so much choice, so many options, that they're stressed out and they just freak out. That's especially true with the younger the child, the fewer choices you should be giving them, because they just can't handle it's decision fatigue, and they just can't handle it. So yes. Yeah, just knowing that so when I start the day, I was like, all right, we're just going to get down to business, and I have had my coffee and I feel great, and let's go. And to me, that's like energy, and we're getting productive, and this is awesome. And to a couple of my kids, that was conflict. What they saw was, ooh, scary. And so I had to find ways to change the tone of how we got started. And just finding that out about our different personality types, and was big in helping smooth out the logistics of our homeschool day. There you go. Jammies at circle time or no jammies, and they choose jammies. So now they have had this little element of control, and now it's their thing too, and not just mom's thing. And I think that's huge and totally worth doing it in your pajamas, because who even cares? Perfect example. Okay, and you'll find on the homeschool worksheet, that last page of the homeschool audit page, are 3 areas to tackle that I think will make the biggest difference. So this is not homeschool planning so much as homeschool troubleshooting and finding out those little logistic changes that'll make a big difference. Small change, big impact. These are the big three for me. And so I hope they will be for you too. So give everything a home, communicate to each kid in some way what their work is to do each day, whether that's a whiteboard that everyone can see, or a checklist, or a spiral notebook, some way for the kids to know what's being expected of them. And I can't remember the other one. Oh, keep track of all the moving parts, not in your head, but written down in one place. And not even just, okay, we do this in this book, so now I've got to flip through and find in this book, where is the plan for this one? And having it in lots of different places. And so you kind of feel scattered. To have one place that you can look at and say, these are the bits and pieces of our plan. And I've got an overview right in front of me in one place that I can look at. And that's huge for just sanity, mindset change, sanity saving. To say, okay, this is the one overview sheet I can look at and wrap my mind around all the moving parts, because there are a lot of moving parts. So yes, good chatting going on there. So this summer is a great time to find homes for everything, at least all the school things. This summer, I am giving each kid their own, well, the older students anyway, their own open bin for their books. And then the bin can go on a shelf, but that bin can go with them wherever they end up wanting to do their work, because we have places for things, but not a dedicated homeschool room. So each kid has one bin with all their stuff in it, and they can pick that up and move it around. And it's easy to just put their things away, because it doesn't have to be perfect, neat and tidy in little filing folders or anything. It's just put the book in the bin. I'm sure the books are going to be destroyed by the end of the year, but they'll be in a container. So, all right, helps on how many hours one should be spending schooling per day. So figuring out your actual homeschool plan, pieces and parts, and what should be in it and how long it should take, and then how much time to plan, I would recommend Pam Barnhill's Plan Your Year, her kit. It will start you from a straightforward way to figure out what you actually want your homeschool to be, why you're homeschooling, and what difference that makes to your plan. She is great at just getting to the heart of that and making it easy and actually practical and meaningful. And then going from there step by step. Pam is awesome at the step by step. So Plan Your Year is what I would recommend if you're trying to figure out what pieces and parts should be in your plan. Hours. Yeah. Yep. State requirements also play into how you plan. If I lived in a state like that, I would be very tempted to count all of the time they played outdoors, because I think that's an important part of their education. I'm a rebel. A Gretchen Rubin rebel. Yes, I did find bins, but I also have some pretty wide bookshelves. So I can, I'm sure when I start next, in 2 weeks, I'm going to start writing about our homeschool plan, and there'll be pictures and everything. But there is a particular Sterilite bin that's heavy duty enough to stand up to boys. And it fits on my shelves. That was definitely a requirement. All right. Yes, we do. How many hours are in a year? That's how many hours we do of school. Or we spent an hour in the car and we listened to an audiobook, so that counts. There you go. All right, some great ideas going on in there. So some of us, myself included, have to go start dinner because people want to eat 3 times a day, no matter how much I try to convince them otherwise. But You know what? I think I can turn off the video and leave this chat box open if people are still sharing ideas and strategies. I don't want to shut that down so soon, but we are done with the workshop. And thank you so much for showing up and for sharing ideas and asking your questions. I'm going to be going through here too and getting ideas for future post ideas. Another place you can come to ask questions or get feedback. I set up there in the Simplified Organization Forums, which is for members. People who have purchased a Simplified Organization course or work the plan have access to a member-only forum. And so there is a homeschooling section in there, so we can also share and troubleshoot off of this list in that forum. And I will also this evening go into the Scholasisters forum, which you can find at scholasisters.com. And we can also troubleshoot some of these here. I'll put the download link